People here. It's after 6:30. We have changed our regular order of things in order to accommodate our first guest, Carl Fisher, who is the director of Save Our Canyons. And we are going to start with him because he has another meeting he has to attend a little later on. So with no further ado, Carl, don't forget to unmute yourself and take it away.
Great. Thank you so much for your flexibility. Yeah, we have first of a series that we're doing tonight, our Wasatch Wednesdays, where we're featuring some guest speakers talking about protecting the Arctic Wildlife National Refuge tonight with a former local Salt Lake City resident. And we'll be wrapping things up March 31st with a discussion featuring Laura Briefer from Salt Lake City Public Utilities talking about protecting our water. So that might be of interest, and I hope you all can maybe tune into that presentation. I'm going to share my screen here and get going on a presentation that I prepared for you guys to talk about protecting the central Wasatch in the face of a lot of growing pressure and growing challenges that are facing the Wasatch Range. As you Save Our Canyons formed about 50 years ago in 1972 in response to snowbird opening up and coming to the Wasatch Mountains. A lot of our founders were professors at the University of Utah and avid mountain adventurers, and they were really concerned about the pressures that the ski industry would draw into the Wasatch Mountains. As you can see, this photo I took from Mount Olympus. Just you can see we have a lot of growing pressures. The Wasatch Mountains are wilderness areas, abut right up against a very urban population. You can actually see the wilderness boundary in this picture because it's where the development stops. So we have the unique juxtaposition of, intensifying urbanization and, wilderness, which is one of the most wild designations that land can enjoy in the United States, right next to one another. And we think that's amazing and cool. And that juxtaposition yields some pretty amazing things, experiences, opportunities for adventure, enjoying the sights and sounds of nature, wildlife, and I mean, just a phenomenal backdrop. One of my favorite views is, from the Jordan River, just enjoying the views of the Wasatch from the Jordan River Parkway. So, since we founded as an organization and fast forward to kind of today, you can see that we've seen a lot of growth and a lot of visitation. Our population locally in Salt Lake County has more than doubled for sure. And our visitation to our national forests here and to our watersheds has, almost quintupled, really, with the Salt Lake Ranger District getting in excess of 6 million annual visits. And with that visitation, we haven't seen a lot of increase in, well, you can see the 6 million annual visits, how that stacks against some of our national parks. We have about 80,000 acres of public lands inside the central Wasatch. There's a lot of also probably 20%, about 40% of that additionally would be private land. So maybe about 120, 140 total acres in that unit. Some of it's watershed land and the rest of it would be private as well. But you can see how it stacks against some of these other really heavily used units and some of the icons of our national parks. The Wasatch blows them out of the water. But land managers only get about 30 cents per visitor in the central Wasatch, which is not a lot of resources to mitigate, given the significance of this resource is from drinking water standpoint. It's not a lot of money per visitor. So what are people doing in the Wasatch? You know, a lot of people talk about, you know, the ski industry. Skiing accounts for about 30% of the visitation to the central Wasatch. 70% is dispersed. So people going to trailheads, picnic areas, campgrounds, you know, biking, hiking on trails, going up there. We see people painting pictures. But it just kind of paints a picture. We commissioned a survey a few years ago, and these are some of those findings to say what are people doing up there, and I should emphasize that we believe as an organization also that non-use is a value of the Wasatch, and just in, you know, getting our drinking water out of these canyons, but non-use of these places is also a value, and that's not really captured, obviously, in visitation stats. But I just put this in here just to give you an idea of what people are doing in these areas. You know, the array of activities, and we can't even fit it on one slide. Continues to go. Fact of the matter is there's a lot of things going on in a very tiny space. Why are people going there? To observe its scenic beauty, enjoy the sights and smells of nature, adventure. These were just some of the findings. Improve physical health, peace, tranquility, enjoy friends and activities. So how are there, as people are going to all these and going up into the Wasatch and going there for these reasons, we're presented with a lot of challenges. And you've probably heard a little bit, I hope, and I know Brian has, about some of the transportation stuff that's taking place in the central Wasatch Mountains. UDOT is currently under an EIS looking at Little Cottonwood Canyon. They're not looking at the other canyons that also get a lot of visitation, but they're really looking at how to address some of the ski visitation. They're not really looking at how to deal with year-round visitation or anything like that up in the canyons. So they're exploring a suite of options. A draft EIS should be out this fall on this this EIS that's going on. But there are some really, I mean, big decisions before that, and what do these transportation solutions bring, and how do they integrate with our transit system in the valley, are kind of some of our primary concerns. I'll probably blow through a couple of these next slides just in the interest of time. I don't want to take too much of your time, and I want to keep some opportunities for Q&A, but really these are just some slides that go into the various options, you know, from just enhancing a bus, having it on the roadway, to widening the roadway so that buses can have a dedicated lane. They also add these things called avalanche sheds that allow the avalanches, big concrete structures that would allow avalanches to go over the roadway so that they wouldn't have to plow as frequently and remove that. But that also has implications for our watershed. Of course, when you roadways, you change the hydrology of our streams, which then has impacts on water quality and aquatic life. Looking at gondola alternatives in the canyons, towers for these gondolas would be about 260 feet high, and I think there would be about 20 different gondola towers placed throughout Little Cottonwood Canyon. Huge visual impact. Of course, gondolas would only stop at the mouth and at 2 ski areas, really not serving that 70% of the population that is visiting the canyon to go to a destination other than a resort. And then they're looking at a train that could potentially, that probably likely go right up the stream corridor, which would certainly have huge impacts on the stream corridor, water quality, wildlife habitat, and obviously just the experience in the canyon. Save Our Canyons has some ideas on transportation, and it's really our vision is grounded in better utilizing the infrastructure that we already have throughout our communities, and using the built environment to support the natural environment. So these blue dots on this map here would be what we're calling canyon centers or canyon hubs, which would be mixed use type developments. They would have housing for low income housing, and employee housing for people that work in the resorts. They would hopefully have some retail and some establishments, and of course parking for to get onto bus service. The yellow lines is what we would like to see as increased and enhanced bus service regionally throughout the Salt Lake Valley, and then going up into the canyons, so that you could enjoy these canyons without having to, bring your car, and requiring basically the construction of more parking lots inside these natural areas. Um, the purple lines with the yellow dots on it, whether that's bus rapid transit along Foothill Boulevard to Wasatch, building off of the existing University Tracks line, and potentially, either a rail or a bus rapid transit going up to Park City, up Parley's Canyon, so you could take more reliable transit service up Parley's Canyon, but really using a bus to service the canyons. Zion National Park does something very similar. When they instituted the shuttle system, the bus system in Zion National Park, they tripled visitation. And one of the things we're very concerned about is the capacity of these watershed canyons, visitor capacity. But the idea here is that hopefully we could service a large portion of the valley by just using transit and disincentivizing automobile use to access the canyons. So with all these pressures and these options before us, what I really wanted to talk about today was an idea for protecting the Central Wasatch that would require an act of Congress, which we've been working for with a coalition of local governments and other partners, called the Central Wasatch National Conservation and Recreation Area Act. Next slide here. The Wasatch Mountains provide a connection, a sense of home, and so much to millions and millions of annual visitors, as I mentioned. This act of Congress would provide lasting protections to the Central Wasatch Mountains, to the wildlife that inhabit them, and of course, providing protections to our local water supply that comes from these mountains, which supports nearly a million people with water supply on both the Wasatch Front and the Wasatch Back. Here we go. So this is kind of the map that the Central Wasatch Commission has been working on. And frankly, we feel like it's inadequate in a number of areas. First and foremost of our concerns is they are looking to, create transportation projects up in these canyons. It's creating pressures for the resorts to all connect with lifts, and create a massive interconnect complex between Little Cottonwood, Big Cottonwood, and Park City. We feel like that will absolutely destroy what makes the Wasatch special, and basically create a massive resort complex, and encourage more development in the Central Wasatch Mountains. So we would like the legislation to block any idea of connecting these canyons, and rather focus on providing good transit connections to destinations within these canyons. Down here near the bottom of the screen, you can see White Pine Canyon right next to Snowbird. That area was left out of the initial Lone Peak Wilderness designation that was part of America's Endangered Wilderness Act, established in 1978. That was actually the state's first wilderness area, and White Pine Canyon should really be part of the Lone Peak Wilderness and provide wilderness protections for that drainage. You've probably, I don't know if you've read in the paper with Alta and some of the parking woes, they're looking to expand their resort potentially up Grizzly Gulch and into other areas. And there's a lot of public land up there that is not being protected by this act at present. So we'd like to see that be protected by this legislation. A few other things is the existing wilderness areas encompass the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. You cannot bike in wilderness currently, and so we've worked with local, bike organizations to remove wilderness so that the Bonneville Shoreline Trail from basically Mill Creek Canyon to the Draper area could be built wholly out of the wilderness to have a multi-use pathway along the Bonneville shoreline, the ancient Bonneville shoreline stand. So honestly, we feel like the Wasatch deserve protection. Salt Lake City, I don't think Salt Lake wouldn't be the place it is without the Wasatch Mountains. 85% of Utah's population lives within 15 miles of the Wasatch Mountains. And that's because we're the second driest state in the union. And, this is the Wasatch are the reason that we have water, frankly. And so we feel like for the water, for the wildlife, for the plants, and for the recreational opportunities that so many people are engaged in, legislation will help us forge a plan to steward these places in the face of the challenges, including climate change going forward. There are a lot of values for why people enjoy the Wasatch. Some of them are obvious and some of them are more personal. To be able to escape the hubbub of daily life, we think is so important. And that is just one of the reasons. There's some being connected to the land and having opportunities to engage with the natural world, we really feel is a benefit to our community more broadly. And the development pressures that are facing this place stands to take that away from the average person. So, and this is just kind of a shot looking south at Lone Peak area and Utah Lake in the background. This is the existing Lone Peak Wilderness. Wrapping these wilderness areas in a designation like a national conservation area will just enhance protections. Still could be managed by the United States Forest Service, but provide them additional guidance and resources to deal with the challenges that we're facing as we continue to grow. So the Central Wasatch Commission has said, by April 1st, really, they are going to have consensus on transportation alternatives and this legislation. We're just reaching out to communities and organizations to see if you could lend your support to say you think protecting the Wasatch is an important concept, and to maybe if you agree with some of the ideas and concepts and fixes to that legislation, hopefully you can help echo our call to enhance protections to the legislation draft that they've been doing. There's some pictures. We have a number of programs, from highway cleanups to trail work to working with schools and educating them about the Wasatch and taking youth up into the canyons, coordinating service projects as well. So while we're actively trying to protect this place through policy, we're also trying to lead communities up to give back to the place that gives us so much. One thing I would like to ask folks, individually, you can go to our website, saveourcanyons.org, and sign a petition urging the Central Wasatch Commission to take action to protect these places. As a community, as a neighborhood council, we would also love to have your support and encourage the Central Wasatch Commission to enact this legislation. And I could provide you all with a draft letter that we have just as a starting point for you. So that really concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions or hear any comments that you have. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks very much, Carl. Would you please put your contact information in the chat box? I'm sure that our council will want to discuss this and hopefully, from my point of view, lend support to what you're doing. I personally appreciate it very much. I've followed and supported you guys since I moved here 20 years ago, and I really appreciate what you do. So are there any questions that anybody would like to ask Carl? Brian?
Yeah, Carl, the current, so there's a summit on the 19th. Do any of the proposals deal with the valley transit needs and the bottlenecks that would ensue at the canyon bases? And should we contact our city council and our mayor?
Yeah, I definitely would, Mayor Mendenhall is part of the Central Wasatch Commission. I would definitely be in contact with her. Today, I read a memo. The Central Wasatch Commission is recommending a train alternative, the Central Wasatch Commission staff. That's pretty concerning to us. They're really ignoring the valley connectivity issues, which we feel are paramount. If you just focus on building something up one of the canyons, you're really just shifting the traffic problem that much further down, because everybody is reliant on getting to that mode with their cars still. So instead of having a traffic jam at Snowbird and Alta, you're going to have it in Sandy and Cottonwood Heights and Holiday. What we need to do is fundamentally shift the way we're thinking about this and get people out of their cars near their homes and their communities, which is why we like that Canyon Center concept, where hopefully you could have access to transit and parking nearer your home, or better, transit just from your home. Eliminate the car altogether.
Any other questions? Why don't you just speak up if you do, because I'm not sure I can see everybody at once on my screen.
Just curious, great presentation, Carl. What's the capacity per hour with your proposal? And you might have mentioned it, I might have missed it, but do we know what the gross capacity is? I mean, the numbers you already have given us indicate this is an extremely popular destination. I know I lived in Florida and we preferred skiing in Utah, but we always went to Denver. But I hate riding the bus, So when you fly into Salt Lake, you can be in a pair of skis in 35 minutes. And I patrolled at the canyons. That was a lot of fun. That's a great destination with enormous, acreage. So.
Yeah, so the capacity of the bus system, I mean, what UDOT CIS looked at doing was basically getting 1,000 people per hour onto a different mode. That was their objective. I think that's a pretty low bar, honestly. I think, it depends on how, I think there are so many options with the proposal that we have. Do you ban cars in the canyon altogether? Do you ban them at certain peak times? Are you running just buses, or are you also having people, carpool and incentivizing carpools through occupancy-based tolls? I think you can move between you can easily do the 1,000 people per hour with buses. You probably get closer to 2,000 people per hour with buses as well. Now, the gondola and the train alternatives carry about 5,000 people per hour. So, I mean, that's a lot more people, but what does that, when you put more people into these places, they need more amenities and you need more development and things of that nature. So really the question kind of becomes, and the question we've been asking, and there is a carrying capacity study going on that will commence shortly. But we need to know what our planning ceiling is in the central Wasatch, and that kind of remains a mystery. So it seems a little premature to go with a high capacity mode when you don't know the capacity. What if the capacity of that canyon is only 20,000 people and you put a mode that is 5,000 people per hour? You're at capacity in 4 hours. And is that sustainable? And is that responsible, I guess, is the question.
Well,
That was,
it
I'm
seems
sorry.
like,
Go
go ahead,
ahead.
Dan. Go ahead.
That was the context of the question, Carl. And that was, if the canyon's going to get loaded, if the destination is going to get loaded anyway, you know, it's going to be like Zion's. You're going to have odd and even tickets. You're going to have odd and even days. It's just going to get berserk. And that's after millions of dollars spent on some type of sophisticated and busing system or even train system. You know, if people say to screw that train, I'm going up there anyway. I'm going to hike up. And there are guys that hike up the canyons and ski down, you know, even off season. That would be my concern. A thorough investigation. Fortunately, a lot of these things get done without thorough investigations.
Yeah, I concur.
You know, it seems like the bus, one of the big advantages of the bus system is that it's scalable. You know, when there's a lot of people who, in certain times of the year, when a lot of people want to get up there, you add buses, and when there are fewer, you subtract buses. Also, it seems to me the capacity of the bus system depends on how many buses you can run. I once actually did a back of the envelope calculation. I'm also concerned that people will avoid any public transit if it's inconvenient. And so I'm thinking about what happens when you park your car. Are you going to stand on a line, you know, even before you get to the ski area, just to get on the train or the gondola? I once did a back of the envelope calculation. If you wanted to have enough capacity to get people up there on like the biggest snow day of the year, you could do it with buses with 3-minute headways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I mean, UTA has even looked at things up to 30-second headways, but then they figure we'll replace the auto jam with a bus potentially. So, you know, you can move a lot of people on buses depending on the frequency, but there are a number of issues. And frankly, local governments are funding UDOT, not UTA. So UTA it's really been reluctant to step up to the plate, basically because they have no funding to run any of these modes. But I think an important thing to note with both train and gondola, nobody's talking about doing away with the road. So you're going to have you know, a traffic jam on the road and 5,000 people an hour going up either in a gondola or a train. So it's really a compounding issue that will result up there.
Yeah, Randy.
I have concerns about people, the large number of people that enjoy the canyons that have mobility issues. How many buses are going to be able to accommodate that? And also people that have sensory issues, like I have kids with special needs. One of mine in particular has a lot more sensory issues than the other. They're not going to fare well on a bus or necessarily on a gondola or a train. So what's being done, especially if you take the ability to drive your own vehicle, that's one of the things we like to do, is just even drive the canyon because it's so beautiful. So I have concerns there, but the biggest is those with mobility impairment. How many can you accommodate? You're going to limit a large population if you go that route. And that's my concern. So.
Yeah, I think, well, you know, obviously with any transit mode, ADA accessibility is part and parcel with all of this. And so it would actually be really helpful to have an advocate to either work with us or to work with local governments to help understand some of those needs in the canyons. But, you know, to have a platform, you know, what locations are people using. You know, I don't know if we need to stop at every climbing crag in Little Cottonwood Canyon, for example, but it would be great to try to understand that. And I think ADA accessibility is at the front of this, of course, because any transit project needs to be ADA compatible. But I'd love to follow up and talk more and learn more if you're willing to drop me an email.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Carl. We have to move on to get to the other items on our agenda, but everybody has your contact information, and we will be discussing this in our own council.
Wonderful.
David?
Thank you.
Brian, if it's quick, Brian.
Go ahead, Carl. I was
Oh.
just going to say, can Carl put some links on our chat and have everybody should know there's a
absolutely.
chat going on.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
Also, the QR code that I noticed that you had up, I scanned it, but I don't know if you could put it up for another minute and everybody else, if they had their phones around, could scan it real quick.
If you go to saveourcanyons.org,
Okay.
you'll get to that exact same petition.
Perfect.
We have an annoying pop-up on our site now driving people to that petition. And I did drop just the sample letter that could be a template for a potential letter that you might submit to the Central Wasatch Commission if you so choose. And just wanted to say thanks again so much for giving us a little bit of time today to discuss with you. And I'm sorry it was so short, but please reach out if you have more questions, and thanks.
Okay, thank you, Carl.
Bye-bye.
In yesterday's mail, I received something from these for a donation to help it. So it had a whole thing to explain it. It was really interesting.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we will go on to our ordinary business. We have not been very religious about approving minutes. Many of you may not know that thanks to the efforts of our secretary, Madison Merrill, the minutes do appear on our website. And I will share my screen for a minute and show you how to find them. Here's our website. You go to Council, Meetings, and Minutes. And in a second, this pops up, and there are the minutes from our last meeting. So what I hope all of you will do is that you'll start making a habit of checking this just before these meetings so that we can vote and approve the minutes. I know some of us have read it, so I would like a motion to approve these minutes from our February 24th meeting. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Okay, Brian, is there a second?
I'll second it, David.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Any further discussion? Okay, then all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, then the motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. The minutes are approved. Next item of business that we have not been doing on a regular basis is the treasurer's report. But I think that all of you as members of the Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council should be aware of where our money comes from and what we spend it on. So is Randall on the call? I can't see you on my screen.
I don't think he is, David.
Okay, well, in that case, we will look forward to treasurer's reports in the future. Okay, I want to also let everybody know that we have a new member of our board, Jeff Carlton. Jeff, would you like to say a couple of words just to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to serve with all of you. I sent David a quick note about my background in history, and most of my life I've traveled constantly, and I've not had an opportunity to really kind of engage in community kinds of activities and organizations. And so my life has changed a little bit. I'm a humble cider maker now. I kind of gave up the corporate world, and so I've got some more time in my hands and a great interest in getting more engaged in the community. So I think Dave kind of circulated my background history. I'm happy to answer any questions, but just glad to be here and part of the organization. Thank you.
Randy?
Would you be interested in being a committee chair if I could nominate?
We'll do that. We'll do that offline, Randy. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
just desperate. And you're
Okay.
very well qualified. So just saying, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very nice to meet you.
Same here.
We all appreciate Jeff very much for his willingness to step up. We have one more vacancy remaining. So if there are other people out there who would like to join our board and help the Capital Neighborhood Council serve the community, you can contact me through the contact tab on our website, and I hope that you will. So I think we've now come to the public officials reports part of our program. So Chris Wharton, why don't you start?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Good to see you, everybody. The legislative session ended, and yay. And so Salt Lake City this year, we had, it was a really difficult year, probably the most difficult since the inland port, and then between those 2 years, most difficult in a really long time. But the city did a lot of work to defeat bad legislation and to improve bad legislation. We had various different things trying to interfere with Salt Lake City's policing, with water rights, expanding the powers of the inland port, taking away local authority during emergency declarations, and we were able to make a lot of progress on all of those. The good bills that passed is that we were able to get a big bill passed for affordable housing dollars. And of course, we have to share that with the rest of the state, but we are really excited about the prospects with that. One thing that we did try to get passed, but were unsuccessful, was trying to insert legislation about modified exhaust into a bill that we were hoping to pass about street racing. That wasn't successful, so we're going back to the city attorney and trying to work on sort of redrafting the city's ordinance that was held unconstitutional. I have a meeting coming up in the next week with the city attorney to go over those details. I continue to meet with Brian and the transportation subcommittee, and I'll be joining them on Thursday to talk about the CIP application and the petition that's been circulating. 5G wireless towers. The council had another discussion on this, and we're trying to see if there's a way that we can do a little bit more on that front. When it comes to towers, what we can't do is we can't limit the number of towers. We can't prevent towers entirely, even in historic districts. And we can't, as long as the tower is in the public right of way and it's within a certain distance of the front of somebody's home, we can't regulate placement of the towers other than that. What we can regulate is design standards, and I think that there's probably some opportunity for the city to do a little bit more there, including requiring these cell towers to be placed on existing public utility lines. Which brings me to another thing that I want to make you aware of is that I was recently contacted by Rocky Mountain Power, and they've been updating transmission lines in a number of different places, and they're going to be updating them coming through our neighborhood, stretching across Capitol Hill and going into the upper avenues. I think it would be great if we could have their government relations person come in and speak to all of us about the details. Unfortunately, that person just took a new job, so they're having a new person on board, and so it'll probably be like a month before we can get them. But I think it would be great to have them here, and happy to help facilitate that. I haven't met the new person yet. And then finally, You've probably seen there's been a lot of in the news about Kozo House, which is over on 5th West. And that is, or wait, sorry. Yeah, 5th West, I think. Right by the new Boys and Girls Club. It's right on the, it's kind of, technically, I think it's in Fair Parks District, Community Council District, but a lot of the residents are also in Capitol Hill. So that project, there's a protest about it. There's an article about displacement, and of course the council is working on having an ordinance, an affordable housing ordinance that will address displacement. That's probably several months out still, maybe even a year out. With the Kozo House, though, I did want to let people know, because I have gotten a lot of information about it, that particular project will not come before the council. That area, that piece of property is already zoned for that higher development zoning because it's near a transit station. It's near 2 transit stations. So that decision won't come before the council. But I have been in touch with those residents that are trying to find new housing and trying to connect them to either services that we have in the city or services that we have through our community partners that we help fund to try to get them connected so that they get into other affordable housing somewhere in the valley. Are there any questions about any of these topics? I can't see anyone.
If you have any questions for Chris, just go ahead and speak up.
Okay.
I guess you did such a thorough job that you answered every question.
Excellent. Well, thanks. Good to see you all.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Ava Lopez, are you on the call?
Yes, I am right here.
Okay,
Thank you.
take it
Happy
away.
St. Patrick's Day, everybody. As usual, I put in links here. So some great news. We have our library services up and running, which I'm really excited about. So on this link, you don't have to make an appointment, but it's up to 60 minutes of computer use and 30 minutes up to other services such as printing services or going in and checking out a book. So if you go on there, it shows you the hours in which each library is open. And of course, we want to make sure that everybody takes advantage of that. I have here the Salt Lake County link. There are other links on where you could get COVID vaccination, but we want to make sure that if you are healthy and eligible to receive a vaccination, please do your community and neighbors a service by getting the vaccination. I can't wait till April 1st because that's when they open up for the rest of us who don't fall under the current requirements. And again, it's super important that we all sign up and get that scheduled. I want to also include in there our homeless services dashboard. I talk about this often, but if you go in weekly, there's an update on capacity that we have in our shelters, including our emergency shelters. Those emergency shelters will be closing on April 15th. And what that means is the Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness decides the future of kind of what plannings and what shelters open up. That coalition is made up of the city, the county, state officials, and different partners such as the VOA, the Road Home, and other individuals that lead on homelessness. Anybody can join the Salt Lake County Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness. So if you're someone that's interested in helping and you really want to achieve some different goals or measurements, that's the best way, in my opinion, to be effective. They're the ones that make a lot of the decision-making process. And we come to the table as a city to be good partners and help either permit different areas or look at different locations to open up shelter availability. So please, please, please get involved with that. I bring up here, I put Tony Gliat's contact information below. It's our urban forestry director. And a few months ago, I brought this up. The urban forestry department was asking each community council to set up a subcommittee for folks that are interested in helping plot and plan and take care and manage the different trees in the public right of way. Those are still the responsibility of the neighbors and neighborhood. So to help with this, Tony, I think they were really busy when they first brought this up, but I want to mention it again. I know there were folks that were interested from here. I know, John, you messaged me saying you're still interested. Though all those emails got sent to Tony Gliat, but if you could message him again, I don't know if you have an urban forestry subcommittee officially set up, or if there's a chair of that subcommittee. But if not, for the folks that are interested, email Tony. I'll put in my information here again. Please copy me. We want to make sure that we get the proper materials, trainings, buckets if you need them, and of course maps of where all these trees are located, on top of where trees are necessary to be planted in the upcoming year. So this is really exciting. Again, this was inspired from the great windstorm of 2020. So this is just another way to rebuild our green spaces and making sure that we take full advantage of our trees and our urban canopy here in the city. I also wanted to bring this up. I'm really excited to bring this to Capitol Hill. There has been some movement on rebuilding neighborhood watch programs in the city. So Gregory Wilking is a lieutenant for SLCPD, and or I believe it's a lieutenant. Apologies if I messed that up, but they are taking interest in this. So on here, there's a link on engagement on here. But if you're interested, again, I know they were wanting, they were asking that for folks to please email Gregory, or you can call him and contact him to get that started there. I'm corrected. He's just an officer. Apologies. Thank you, Bob, for correcting me on that. And I included on here, it's springtime. I'm sure folks have bikes and are getting that. Please register them. I actually have a few folks that are interested, and so I want to reach out and see. What we've seen with bike registration is you purchase your bike, you're not required to register it. So it's something that the consumer is reliant on to register. And a lot of folks have been asking if there's some way we could get partners to the table to get our bikes registered from the moment you're at the you're at the bike shop purchasing it. So if anyone's interested, please reach out to me. I'd love to loop more community members, and it's something that's really important. And we're trying to get mobility on that. As well as here, I have the racial equity and policing link. And again, they have public meetings. So all their meetings are public. If you're looking to get involved with police reform and help our city officials come up with better processes of engagement, sometimes it's hard to engage with our boards. So we want to make sure that we're getting as much attendance as possible and as many voices as early enough to make these decisions. As you know, last year we saw so much, I think, hurt and healing trying to happen from the communities on these topics. So we want to make sure that we get everyone engaged in this. So again, please look out for the next meeting. All that information is again on that link. I put in here the TNT auction. So every year SLC has cars and vehicles from their fleets that we no longer use. So we auction them off. If you're looking for a vehicle that was lightly used, or maybe something that you'd like that's cheap and cost effective, you can go to the auction. But of course, I'm going to tell you, you probably should stay away from cars. I think as we look to helping our city, we want to look at like e-bikes and other forms of transportation. Sorry, misspeak. Thank you for muting. And as the folks from Save Our Canyon said, we want to look at other transportation methods. So take that into consideration too. And finally, thank you, David, and to the folks that update the Capitol Hill website. I saw that you included the 700 and 600 North survey, so thank you for that. I put that link up here. Folks, this is a survey that the transportation department's using. Eventually, they'll be using this to update 600 and 700 North. So please take that survey. They're going to be improving this corridor, so we need to know what you'd like to see there. Do I have any questions or comments or concerns?
If you have any questions for Ava, just go ahead and speak up.
Real quickly, Ava, a lot of people don't seem to get a mailing out that I hear of concerning the new water reclamation and sewer plant that's getting built. That is the largest undertaking Salt Lake City has ever taken on. And just to quote it, and I'd love to hear what your quick comments are, but it's a $700 million project west of primarily Sweetown here in Beck Street. It's a fascinating project. If you study some of the flyers that have gone out, what can you comment from the city on that?
Yeah, and sorry, you said your first comment, did you say you didn't receive a mailer?
I receive them all the time, but I've mentioned it to other business owners in the area and they don't tend to receive them. I don't know if it's targeted primarily to Sweetown because Sweetown's getting sewer system finally, as opposed to its long-standing septic tank system up here. But that the project itself is a 700. I don't know if you know that much about it. It's the water department and the
Yeah, they have so I'll say
a lot of bucks.
yeah, so we know about it. They have an engagement team also, because they're so large and they have so many projects. So that's not something that I have immediate comments from the mayor or anything about. A lot of these projects were passed before. It didn't happen last year. It's happened in years to come. So in phases. I went and toured the first phase of the water reclamation area because you're right, it's right around the corner. And it needed those updates. As far as the cost, I know that they break up the cost. It sounds a lot. It is a lot of money. But again, the way I'm not how should I say this? I don't have the most eloquent way of describing it, but a lot of these updates had to happen because the infrastructure wasn't up to date. So there's certain requirements, and I apologize. I wish I had the exact language to tell you, but basically standards that are set by the federal government, the city wasn't meeting, so we had to update it. I can get you more information though, and then I hope everyone's receiving it. Are there other folks on this call that haven't heard about this at all?
No.
We had brought it up last year. I know it was talked about, but it's the first phase of construction's gone through. Why don't I do this? Let me send an email, David. I'll send you the updates on this, and I can get in touch. I'm going to put in the contact here if anyone has any concerns. Holly Mullen is the community engagement specialist over there, and she's the one that's going to have exact details on this project that can really break down the budget too. Not just look at this as a flat fee, but saying, hey, in these next years, this is what's getting improved. This is where the tax base is being used, and exactly looking and stating it. This is the requirements we're trying to meet as a city. But I'm happy to connect that. That way we can have more transparency for the neighborhood here.
Great, thanks. Any other questions?
Just one
for anybody?
thing.
Yeah, Barb.
Oh, just real quick. You mentioned about the vaccinations the county's participating in and doing. And just so if people are not aware, there is a no waste list that if a facility has vaccinations at the end of the day, they don't want to have them go to waste. So if you look around at places, you can maybe get signed up and find information about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know two people who otherwise would not have been included in the vaccination priority yet who got vaccinated in Orem that way. And they apparently don't care if you're from Utah County or where you're from.
That's what I hear too. I actually, thanks Barbara for that. I was able to get, I have a scheduled appointment tomorrow. Although I don't fit the requirements, a clinic called me and said, we're going to have a lot of extras. So if you want, you can come up during these hours and get one. So I think we're reaching a point where we do need as many people to get the vaccine. It's helpful for folks. So those that were prioritized have had the opportunity, and now it's a matter for the rest of us to get vaccinated. So thank you for that reminder.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to Jen Daly Provo, our legislative representative.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm going to have to be really, really brief. It's my anniversary tonight, and my husband and I have got plans at 7:30. So I'm going to take 4 minutes, and then I'll make sure that my contact information is in here. So please email me or text me with info. It was a busy session. As you know, there was a lot of, as Chris Wharton mentioned, a lot of activity around the inland port, and not a lot of it very good. We're still working on trying to make improvements on ensuring that the activity around the port is conducted in with as much renewable energy as possible. But we've got a long way to go to make sure that that voice becomes a bigger voice at the table, and we will continue to work on that. There will be a lot of changes in the coming weeks with regard to the public health measures around COVID. You've probably seen in the news that the statewide mask mandate will end on April 10th, and a lot of other benchmarks for pulling back on public health safety measures, unfortunately were implemented without really good, reliable scientific data. And so I have a lot of concern that we're rushing back to an idea of a normal that isn't reasonable, and that all the sacrifices that we've made with regard to COVID and trying to protect people will not be as effective as they could be if we just pressed on to the end. So I hope that despite the end of the statewide mask mandate and some other requirements for public gatherings, that you'll all continue to practice safe behavior as much as you can, so that we can get to the end of this and save the lives and well-being of our community members. I did pass a number of bills that I was really passionate about this year. I will actually post a link to my newsletter in the chat that outlines some of those successes. There was really great work done this year on affordable housing, on infrastructure funding. And with that, I'm actually going to leave it at that. If there is a question, I've got 90 seconds. Please feel free to pipe up. And I'm really, really sorry. I know that this rushed report is not ideal, but I know that it was really important to get the earlier presentation in from Save Our Canyon. So I do apologize. I don't want you all to feel like I'm rushing out, but we only have one anniversary a year, so.
Maybe you can do something about that.
Maybe.
Hey, Jennifer,
somebody could run a bill.
Jennifer, Jeff Carlton, just real quick,
Hi.
congratulations. I saw your name attached to a lot of legislation. That's impressive. So thank you for working on that.
Thank you. In honor of Women's History, and it's so wonderful to be on a call with you and all the other wonderful, brilliant, talented women in this group. So thank you for everything that you do.
I appreciate that a lot. It truly is an honor to serve, and it was a crazy session, but we have an amazing community, and it is truly, truly a privilege to have the opportunity to represent all of you. I couldn't do it without you.
Happy anniversary. Have fun.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Okay, we're a little behind schedule. Detective Bob Norgard, can you take over here?
Oh, yes, and I'll be very, very brief. So I pulled up the crime statistics starting from the 1st until this evening, and there were 4 vehicle break-ins recently, 3 of which occurred on March 2nd. So it's just a reminder not to leave any valuables in your car or anything that would resemble a valuable, because it definitely draws attention. And I also noticed that there were 3 recovered stolen vehicles between, 4 and 500 North between Center Street and West Capitol. So that's seems like it's turning into a little bit of a hot spot for stolen cars. So I'm going to keep my eye on that. And whenever I can get out there and take a look, I'd like to just drive around there a bit at nighttime and see if I can catch some of these fellers. And lastly, it was brought to my attention last night that apparently around this time of year when it gets warm, people like to start congregating at the Ensign Peak trailhead and do a lot of drinking and general shenanigans. So I just put in a request to get one of our big mobile trailer cameras out there with the big flashing blue light on it, hopefully to try to deter any more activity. So that's pretty much all I have for now. Is there any questions?
That's great about Ensign Peak, Bob. That really does become a problem.
So I hear.
Any other questions for Bob?
Yeah, Detective, I just had a real quick comment, I guess. It just seems to be a discrepancy. If you look at next door, there's probably 2 vehicle break-ins a day in the Marmahood with case numbers attached to them. I'm just curious why you guys are only showing 3 from March 2nd when I'm looking at Randy across my screen. I mean, I've got to tell you, we're getting pummeled in the Marmahood. And so those statistics are a bit off.
It happens so often that we don't even call. I mean, like, we just like, oh, well, another package got stolen. I'm just going to deal with Amazon with it. That's how bad it is.
Like, I think the last one I saw about had 181 comments from the neighborhood about how fed up they were. I mean, it's a prolific issue in this neighborhood right now.
So sorry, were you talking about vehicle break-ins or package thefts?
Yeah, just general property crime, vehicle break-ins, all across the board.
Yeah, I mean, and understandably, if it's not reported, there's no way we can know and track it.
Yeah.
And it could be too that sometimes the reports take a little bit of time to get into the system because they go from the individual officer, then assigned to the appropriate squad, investigated and pushed on through.
And are we rolling cars to property crime, or is there still a standing, we're not rolling vehicles out to meet with residents? Because that seems to be the general consensus in the neighborhood.
No, as far as I know, there's no way we would refuse a response.
Can you follow up on that? Because we've kind of been told that with COVID, there's been a change in the policy. I just think it'd be great as a board member to know. I obviously talk to a lot of community members when I walk around. And like I said, this is a fairly hot topic, button issue for a lot of people. And, a lot of comments are coming back that when they're calling, Salt Lake City PD is simply saying, we're not going to roll anybody. Here's your case number.
Are they at least getting referred to online reporting?
Yeah, I haven't followed up beyond just the general comments. I just want to be able to bat that back if there's a standing policy, or if in fact that's bad information. I want to be able to educate people that you are in fact rolling to calls.
Dan, I got a call from the DA's office today. One of the things that I think that they're doing is they're getting collective cases before they actually go through with,
prosecution. Yeah.
Prosecution. So one of the guys that I actually had I'm talking multiple issues with, we're finally getting down to where they're doing something with that case. But it's like, if it's a one time and you can't, everybody's got a mask on anyway, and you can't identify who it is. It's more like, you've got this guy on camera. What does he look like? Well, if you can't see skin, then good luck. You got a guy in a mask with, a jumpsuit on. So it's not, I do see, when I do call, they do come out, but sometimes it's just so petty, it's not worth it. I will, and also it is a time consuming process when we do calls. So it's like, if it's a $5 thing, I'm not even gonna worry about it. I'm just gonna order another one. So, but if it is something of a greater value, that's when, and I haven't had bigger packages stolen lately, but I do hear that it's still happening in the neighborhood.
Dan, I will look into that. I do know during the peak of the COVID, or even when COVID began, they pretty much said, yeah, if we don't have to meet in person, we're going to handle it another way.
That'd be great, Detective. Like I said, it seems to be that it's rising and becoming more of an issue. It'd be great to see some more patrols. I don't know if you can maybe throw a hat in the ringer for us to get more cars up and down through the neighborhoods.
2 and 3. Yeah, 2 and 300. They hit us on these two streets. They hit us really, really hard. That's in between those two. And then you see a lot of congregation of these same people that we know were the ones that have stolen from us at the gas stations of the Chevron and 7-Eleven right there. I can identify because I know they're wearing the same clothes. So it's like, but they can duck and weave through the streets there. So that's where a lot of it happens at.
Okay.
And you're agreeing, Dan, I'm sure. I don't, same thing.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much, Bob. Now going to turn a few minutes over to Steve Auerbach from the Salt Lake Academy of Music. Steve, are you there? I see you. Can you unmute? Okay, we'll give you a couple minutes, see if you can figure out how to join us here. The next item on our agenda is a proposed plan development at 1025 North 900 West. That may sound to you like it's outside of Capitol Hill, and it is by a few hundred feet, but because it's so close to us, the City Planning Division has asked our council to give their input. So I believe we have Joe Colosimo here to speak about that project.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Let me just start by telling you a little bit about my client. My client is Mr. Keith Warburton. Keith really specializes in catering to citizens that need a second chance. He works closely with the Road Home, with the Miller and the Atkinson Foundation to place people that have been through rehab that need just a second chance to get back up and moving. They've been moving out of shelters, and he's providing them a new start. Keith bought the existing hotel at 1025 North, 900 West, and has refurbished the interior of the units into to make them 35 studio apartments to accommodate these people that need the second chance. In buying that, I should say that needless to say, he's stopped renting them by the hour and has moved to renting them to the 30 days at a minimum and 12 months at the maximum. When buying the hotel, it came with the property to the north of it. It's a 0.75 vacant lot to the north. So tonight, I want to talk a little bit about what he wants to do on that 0.75 of an acre. That piece is really kind of a remnant piece that was created with the building of I-15. It's a lot of small parcels and abandoned alleys, and so if you see it right there on the parcel, it consists of two parcels that have two different zonings. So the parcel that fronts onto 1100 North has what they call an RMF 35 zoning, and which is 0.2 of an acre, and the parcel behind it is 0.55 of an acre, and it has a CB zoning. And so we've laid it out to do 30 apartments. And so what we're proposing to do, and we haven't done it yet, but is we will combine the hotel and this parcel to do a lot consolidation. We will then have 35 studios in the existing hotel, and we'll have 30 units in the new building, for a total of 65 units. And we will have one parking stall per unit on the project. So that's our proposal. It'll be 35 feet in height. We'll reestablish the alley down the west side to create good connectivity between the hotel and the alley system to 900 West. We do have a couple of waivers that we're asking for. We fall under what they call a freeway frontage, where you need 20 feet of landscaping. We really don't front onto the freeway. We front onto the frontage road there, which is that 900 West. If you look at this picture here, there's 3 or 4 large barricades and sound walls that separate us. In our site plan, we do plan to landscape out in front there. And we can show you that in the site plan. We do talk about, there is a front yard setback requirement that we're asking for a waiver. The front yard setback consists of going down the east side of the hotel and then directly across the old abandoned 900 West. And the ordinance requires that you have 75% of your frontage in that 15-foot setback. And it's just, there's a couple problems there. That's the old 900 West. And in that 900 West is a large high-pressured gas line easement. And then by statute, they have the right to that old 900 West easement. So that's problematic. There's a water line there. And then it's just physically impossible to get that into that layout. The other thing that we're asking for is we don't want to back into, we want to be able to have the ability to back into the alley, park and back into the alley and be able to drive through the project. If we had to, we could change our parking to a 45-degree and meet the parking requirements. So we're committed to, we could do that if need be. And then the last thing is that the RMF zone requires 80 feet of frontage. And if you notice on 1100 North, we don't have 80 feet of frontage there. So tonight I ask, you grant me approval with all the waivers to go ahead and build what we're doing. David, I don't know if you have my site plan there that I emailed you, if you could share that, or if you want me to try.
Yeah, I can. Hang on one second, I can.
Joe, real quickly, just
You
a
want?
comment, because I'm very close to the neighborhood. What your client's done is fabulous over there. That thing was a hellhole for a long time.
Yeah, it really is. And so having said that, with the approval of this building, we will then make the two buildings match. And so we'll take that facade of that old hotel and make it match the new construction. And I've said that today, but let's just talk about the site plan here a little bit. So you can see that we've got the existing hotel to the left there. The new building is proposed in a north-south direction, and they're all 31 bedroom units and 30 feet of height. We've changed the parking on the west to be 45 degree. It's limited us a little bit on the parking. If we were able to change it to 90, we'd get a couple more stalls. We've got landscaping that abuts the freeway. The sound wall stops right about the corner of our building. And so all that parking lot to the north will be behind a sound wall. No one will even see that. We've got, plenty of open space, fire, and all the rest. So I think we meet all the code that way. And then we're going to do a real modern looking building, flat roof. David, I think if you have my elevations there, you can see the new hotel elevation and the proposed elevation. So that's what we're proposing to build here. 3-story building with balconies. And again, they're all 1 bedrooms, plenty of parking. And then we'll make that existing hotel match this facade. So clean it all up, take down that crazy looking top of it, cut that all, make it look flat, and hopefully try to clean up the whole area there.
I have a question. I'm sorry. You're saying 1 bedroom. Just curious. Could this potentially be couples though that are staying in these units, or I just wondered the total capacity that you would have at any given time?
I mean, if you had 2 per unit, it'd be 60 people, couples.
Okay. So the total capacity of all of these that you could have, if it would be 60.
Yeah, that's based on 2 per. Now that's on the new product. The 35 units could also house 2 people. They're studios, and so they're a little tighter. But so you could have 70 in the existing hotel and 60 in the new product we're building.
I just didn't know if there was going to be a restriction to an individual in this recovery situation, or whether it would be potentially that. And I just knowing the volume of the number of people that were going. Now, parking capacity, if it were to, would it still accommodate that?
Yeah, most of our clientele aren't driving; they're taking transit and what have you. And so, like I say, we do have 1 stall per unit, and so we're trying to create connectivity down 900 West to 10th North, and let them get to the transit system.
Thank you. I was just curious.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Joe, thank you for clarifying that you're going to make the hotel facade look like your picture here, because that is one ugly hotel today.
Yeah. You guys didn't get my joke. He stopped renting them by the hour. So
no, I got it.
Yeah, I do have I think, David, if you could share that other picture, they kind of show the hotel in the background with the new construction in the foreground, and it kind of you can kind of see but yeah, they'll look very similar, very modern. We'll cut that stupid top off the hotel and to crazy.
Very positive.
May I ask you a question? What is it exactly you would have us do for you when we are preservists? We like to conserve what we have, and that.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get your question. You broke up.
Muted herself by accident. Mintum, you're muted.
Oh, hold on. There you go.
What did you say?
You got muted. Try again.
I got muted. Well, Dan, you live over there. Do you think that's just right by the freeway? What kind of thing did you put?
Again, to reiterate what Joe joked about it, that was the biggest prostitution point north of North Temple. I'm telling you. Now it's unbelievably changed, and it looks like it's going to be more of a halfway house, right, Joe? Recovery.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Well, I mean, I want you to understand that these people that come out of the road home go through a rehab and their, a certification. So we're not taking people from homeless people per se. We're taking people from these shelters others that have had some rehabilitation and putting them in a home.
And one of the issues I saw even talking to the DA today was when they release even from inmates from prison, they have nowhere to go. I mean, they're so short. So you're going to have these people either dwelling in the neighborhood, potentially homeless, or you're going to have to provide a resource or try to provide a resource so that it doesn't set. I can understand what you're trying to do. It's especially with the double capacity that opens up a lot more.
Yeah.
And if it's already an area that you have these type of issues, like where you're dealing with prostitution or things like that, anything to benefit.
You want to take it.
See, our original facade had open staircases, and I've encouraged Keith to close those and make them secure, just so you don't have people sleeping under the stairs and place to accumulate. And so we're hoping to be sensitive to that, and then provide somebody a place to get their life started over again.
Yeah, Joe, I just have a couple questions down that front. Again, it's in close proximity to our neighborhood. This looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. This is a halfway house or transitional housing. And it sounds like it's transitional housing for people that have records. And I think we just need to be a little bit more a little more transparent about what that entails for the neighborhood. I mean, that's a lot. And I'm all about giving, from a person that has a background in adult probation and parole, I think second chances are great. But these are people that are probably on paper, which means that they're going to have APMP visits. Most of these people, if they're coming through that system, a little bit of an assumption that they may be in the federal system with records there. But I mean, I think we need to, as a community council, be reaching out to our sister community here and having a broader discussion about, although it sounds like it's a great opportunity for second chance, I just think we need to drill down and have a little bit better understanding on what the future entails, what you're licensed to do there. Is it going to turn into another program place where we end up with more transient, transitioning across and through our neighborhoods? I just think there's a lot of information, not a knock on your client, not a knock on you, but I'd love if you have a little more granular detail into that field, that would be helpful for us, I think.
I'm just trying to see if my
The meeting with I would love if we could all, I mean, if we have an opportunity to do like a Zoom meeting where we could all discuss this, that would be phenomenal, because this is a large volume of people. Although, like I said, there's not many resources out there now, and there needs to be more, but this is a large volume of people coming into the area, and we do already have a lot of these type of facilities or similar types of facilities in our area.
I apologize. I thought Keith was on the Zoom here. I'm not sure what kind of a, for lack of a better word, background check that he does on his potential tenants, or if he relies on the road home to send them to him. I wish he was here to speak to that. So, but we could certainly have another meeting to discuss that if you'd like, and we can try to get those questions answered to see what exactly his protocol is to target people that are more willing and more fitting to move there.
Hey, Joe. Okay, let me just jump in. We have one more person we want to hear from. Our community council has until April 16th, I believe, to submit comments to the city on this project. So we do have some time to talk about it amongst ourselves and perhaps send the developers some more questions.
Yes, if you want to do that, I mean, I'll work on the, I'm the planner side of it. I'll work on the tenant verification side and get you that information and see what.
Quick, I'm into Brandon's granddaughter, and I actually live in Rose Park. I actually live like maybe 7 blocks away from that hotel. Okay. Is there going to be any kind of information you are going to provide to the community? Because from my understanding, we had no idea that it was being turned into a halfway home. And I feel living in that community, we should have been aware of what was going on. I mean, I have a young child at home, and I'd like to know who's going to be in the neighborhood.
Well, in fairness to the project, I think Dan has coined it halfway house. I'm not sure what constitutes a halfway house, but
yeah, I think, if it's not run by the state, I don't think we can call it a halfway house, but I think we can probably label it transitional housing is what it sounds like to me. And if it's transitional housing, I just think from a neighborhood council standpoint, we would like a presentation on how does that system work, right? I mean, if this is hey, we're going to develop it, and 2 years from now, we're not holding those standards. You know, this neighborhood routinely gets into agreements with the city and with developers, and then those agreements 5 years down the road tend to, you know, we end up tearing stuff down that we were going to leave up. We end up walking away from agreements on traffic that we had in place that were supposed to be there. So I just think that it would be great to hear a little bit how that whole thing works, right? Is this a month-to-month thing? Is this tenants are there for a year? What is the background policy and check? Are you going to have on-site security? I just think that there's a lot more information when we're talking about, you know, giving people a second chance, which we are all about, but we would like to know and have some more information. At least I would on that front.
And I think
Okay.
that's a fair-
I'm going to call a halt to this particular discussion, not to the topic. We will continue to talk about this amongst ourselves and get more information. But I do want to leave a few minutes for Steve Auerbach from the Salt Lake Academy of Music. We promised him a few minutes, and so Steve, this is it. Go ahead.
Hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Steve Auerbach, and thanks a lot for having me. I'm the executive director of a newer nonprofit organization called the Salt Lake Academy of Music. And I made a little dog and pony show, so maybe I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah, please do.
Show you a little bit about what we do. Just one moment, please. Right. Oh. As my system is not letting me share my screen right now, I'm going to change that setting. So we started this organization. One moment.
You should be able to share, Steve. I've allowed everybody to share their screens.
Let me see. Okay. You see that?
We're seeing a red line, a red line with a white line above it, below it.
See? Try this one. There we go. Just do it. Thank you for your patience. Can you see a logo now?
There we are. You got it.
Great. So I'm just going to kind of walk through this real briefly. I started this organization after I met the founder of School of Rock back in 2003 in Germany. And we got involved together in developing his organization. It was a, this is going too fast. I'm just going to stop it. So I met this fellow, my artist met this fellow in Germany at a music festival back in 2003. And then I got courted by this company to open schools for them. I was not in music education until then. And since that time, we've had some really great success. And we developed School of Rock first, my team and myself. And then we developed an organization after that company sold back in 2008. We started musicgarage.org, which was a partner program, and we still are a partner of the Utah Arts Alliance. And basically, we're a music school in Sugar House that started out of the Music Garage program. Music Garage was an after-school program that ran for 10 years and became an award-winning program in the Valley, served hundreds of kids and played all over the state at festivals and special events. And including the Marmalade Jam over on the west side of the Capitol. And so we've got this facility in Sugar House now after 10 years of running that program. The nice people from Dee's Family Restaurants, who own the shopping center in Sugar House, built us a facility. And we've been here and started a nonprofit after running Music Garage for 10 years. We started the Salt Lake Academy of Music as a nonprofit because nearly half of the families needed help with the tuitions for the lessons and the performance programs and so forth. And so we started the nonprofit last year and it launched in 2020, January. And then COVID hit and we managed to get through the year. It was really very, very challenging and difficult. But now we've got this robust program, and what we offer the community is free to fee instruments, lessons, group programming, performance, production, recording, and touring. So these are all things that we've done before over the last 16 years in running these various programs. And we've got a pretty amazing team of people. Some of them are local luminaries. Some of them you may not have heard of, but they're very high level instructors. Most have master's degrees. Some have had recording contracts with major labels, and they're all very, very wonderful people. Here's a little photo of what one of our studios looks like. This is a cello lesson. And then we've got guitar lessons. Joe Chisholm teaches trombone, bass guitar. Terrence Hansen, our rock music director, teaches once in a while. He's kind of retired from teaching. We have a pretty diverse community. All kinds of different people come to us for instruction, and we offer the individual lessons and the group lessons and the recording and other programs for the community. Rehearsal is really, really fun for the kids. They get to learn what it's like to play on a team. And this is a game that they get to play for the rest of their lives. It's not unlike football, not that there's anything wrong with football, but music you can do till you're 80. And until the arthritis really sets in, right? We are very, very fortunate to have a great team. These are just some photos from over the years that we put together here. Just kind of show you Terrence in action. I get a little bit of coaching time. And then there's the performances. And these are like it's not the novelty of having children on stage. It's the majesty of having children on stage playing well. And so what we really like to see is a high level of playing. Our students, like last summer, we had 3, although they canceled, we had 3 bands booked up at Deer Valley Amphitheater. We're a staple at the Utah Arts Festival, Avenue Street Fair. We play Gallivan Center several times a year for different events. And it's really a privilege to be able to do this. Some of the heartfelt testimonials you'll find on our website. You can just Google us. We're Salt Lake Academy of Music. And it's really wonderful to have the kind of feedback we get from our community. These are all real pictures of real kids on stage. This is down at the Gallivan Center at the Utah Blues Festival. This is a bunch of young boys playing on stage. This is over in Sugar House by the library, which is hopefully coming back soon. Kids get a chance to be on radio. This is Brian Kelm from KRCL. We had a blues band that got on his blues show and talked about their love of the blues, which was kind of hard to believe for a bunch of teenagers. And they get to play large events. This is the fireworks in the Sugar House just before the dusk, and the kids playing before a growing audience. We also play Deer Valley Amphitheater, as I mentioned earlier. And we also have clinicians come by and partner with various organizations. This is a violin clinic given by, oh, now his name is escaping me, but Daryl Anger from Berkeley. And this is with the Intermountain Acoustic Music Association. How am I doing on time?
Well, go ahead and finish up.
Okay, all right, thank you. So the students come in for, I'll use this model here. They have lessons. We have a beginner program for performance, then an intermediate performance program, and a bands program, which is an advanced audition-based program, and then recording. We've got beautiful facilities in Sugar House. The studio, like I said, was built for us by Dee's Family Restaurants, and they're our landlord, and they basically gave it to us. I didn't think that we'd be able to afford to be in Sugar House, but miraculously we are. Let's see, some of the other events we play. This is Craft Lake City, Gallivan Center. There's some more pictures of the studio. That's Dylan Prush there with the red beard. He was our very first student, and he teaches on staff. We also have, during COVID, we've got in the lower right there, you'll see a picture of it's like a TV studio. and we stream concerts out of here. And we've, we had to close for COVID from March to May. And then we reopened and we've had no incidents, knock on wood. We've been open, we've been doing rehearsals. We're very rigid about masks and stuff like that. These pictures are pre-COVID. And we take temperature at the door. Here you can see some of the kids in rehearsal and Terrence there working with the kids, and we're all masked up, and we've got what you can see here on the right are these plexiglass barriers that were donated by Delvey's Plastics. They did a really great job for us. So I'm very grateful to be able to present what we do. We love what we do. Like I said, we're a free to fee resource, including musical instruments. We are constantly getting donations of instruments, which are tax deductible, and people give us a call and then drop them off. And I'm sure in your notes, I can leave my contact information, if that'd be okay, or if you already have
Yes,
that.
please do. Yes.
I'll just leave it. Do you all have any questions?
Well, Steve, thank you very, very much. We're
Thank you for having
glad to know that you guys are there, and it sounds like you're doing wonderful things with the kids.
Yes, thank you very much. We're lucky to do it.
Okay. Catherine Kennedy joined us a little bit late. Catherine, you want to say a few quick words?
It seems like is the meeting end timed 8? Isn't that right?
Technically, yeah.
I just would say that we signed our contract with our new superintendent last night. So that is a big step. Actually, you announce a person and then you have to negotiate with the person. And so we're thrilled about that. And then we also are planning carefully for a 4-day return to school, and for a normal year next year is what we're expecting and hoping for, with flexibility for students who want to remain remote. Also, we got a wonderful report. I've got some, I won't screen share, but I do have some great slides if anyone wants to see them, about our plans for after school enhancement and recovery learning. And also for the summer, we'll have either 2 4-week terms or 1 5-week term for kids in actually pre-K through rising 12th graders. And I think even current 12th graders that are planning that, need a few things to graduate. So my understanding is that at West, those students will be allowed to walk with their class and then required to finish up in the next a couple those summer quarters in order to get their diploma. So I'll stop there, and please feel free to email me if you have any questions. And I apologize for being in another school-related meeting. It was for the Utah School Board Association, and I'm a representative to them, and so I had to go. I'd rather be with you all.
Well, if you get a note from your teacher, we'll let you go.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any comments anybody in the group would like to make? I had hoped to have some time left for an open mic, which I would like to make a regular feature of these meetings. Time got a little bit away from us tonight, but is there anybody who has something that they would like to raise? Yeah, Brian?
Yeah, thanks. Just remind everybody, look in the chat for the link for tomorrow's transportation committee meeting. Councilman Wharton will be there, and should have we have a pretty packed schedule. So if you would scroll up and find that link. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, it being a little past 8 o'clock, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second the motion.
Who made it first? I didn't see.
Who made that? Nick?
Jeff Carlton.
Carlton made it. Who seconded it?
I'm sorry, I seconded it.
Oh,
All
Jeff
right,
did.
who made it?
I'll make it. I move that we close the meeting.
All right. I think Nick had his hands up. We'll let Nick make the motion and Jeff seconded it. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful. It's great to spend time with you all. Stay safe, be cool, like I know you will.
Have
Talk
fun.
to you soon. Bye-bye.